Have you ever felt like the ground was ripped out from under you? Like the one person you trusted most in the world turned their back on you in a way you never saw coming? That's exactly what happened to me when I found out my mom, the woman who raised me single-handedly, gave away my inheritance, everything I thought was mine, to her best friend, someone I barely even knew. I'm still reeling from the betrayal, wondering how I'm supposed to honor her memory when I'm burning with anger and hurt over what she did. This isn't just about money or stuff. It's about family, legacy, and the gut-wrenching realization that maybe I didn't know my mom as well as I thought. I've spent months fighting to get back what's rightfully mine, wrestling with guilt, rage, and a sadness I can't shake. Stick with me as I unpack every raw, messy detail of this journey, every tear, every sleepless night, and the shocking truth I uncovered that changed everything. You won't believe how far I had to go to stand up for myself, and I'm still not sure if I've won or if I've lost a piece of my heart forever. I need your help to figure out what comes next. My name's Lauren, and I'm 34, living in Savannah, Georgia, a city dripping with history, where moss-draped oaks line the streets, and the air always carries a hint of salt from the nearby river. I'm a high school history teacher, spending my days in a classroom full of teenagers who keep me on my toes, and my nights grading papers in my cozy, rented bungalow near Forsyth Park. Savannah's a place of old charm, with its cobblestone squares and antebellum houses, but it's also a city of secrets, where the past lingers in every corner, much like the ghosts of my own life. I grew up here, raised by my mom, Ellen, after my dad passed when I was just 6. Mom was my rock, tough, funny, and fiercely independent, working 2 jobs as a nurse and a waitress to keep us afloat. She wasn't perfect, but she was mine, and I always thought I'd inherit the little she had, her house, her savings, maybe some family heirlooms, as a final piece of her love when she was gone. But when she passed last year after a long battle with heart disease, I learned a truth that shattered me. She'd left almost everything to her best friend, Marla, a woman I'd met maybe a handful of times, leaving me with nothing but a box of old photos and a letter I couldn't bring myself to read for weeks. The emotional conflict hit me like a tidal wave, a mix of betrayal, grief, and a deep, aching confusion that's still tearing me apart. Mom and I weren't always on the same page. There were fights, especially in my teenage years, when I'd push back against her strict rules, or later, when I moved out and didn't call as often as I should have. But I loved her, and I thought she knew that. So when I sat in the lawyer's office downtown, the humid Savannah air sticking to my skin, and heard that she'd signed over her small house on the edge of the city and most of her savings to Marla, I felt like I'd been slapped. Why would she do this? Was it some final punishment for the times I'd let her down, or did she think I didn't need her, didn't deserve her? I'd spent years building a life I thought she'd be proud of, teaching kids, volunteering at the local historical society, even saving up to take her on a trip to Charleston she'd always dreamed of, though we never got the chance. And now, it felt like she'd erased me from her story, like I wasn't enough. The anger was immediate, a hot, bitter thing that made my hands shake as I drove home down Abercorn Street, past the grand old mansions, feeling smaller than I ever had. But underneath it was a sadness so heavy I could barely breathe. Grief for her, for the mom I thought I knew, and for the future I'd imagined where her memory would be my comfort, not my pain. Memories of mom flooded me constantly in those first weeks, each one a double-edged sword that cut deeper as I tried to make sense of her choice. I'd sit on my porch swing, watching the sunset paint the park in gold, and remember the way she'd hum old jazz tunes while cooking gumbo in our tiny kitchen, the smell of shrimp and okra filling the house. I thought about how she'd drag me to Savannah's historic cemeteries as a kid, telling me stories of the city's ghosts while we walked under the oaks, her laughter echoing off the tombstones. I remembered the hard times, too, when I was 16 and snuck out to a party, how she grounded me for a month but still sat up with me late at night, talking about her own wild youth to make me feel less alone. And I couldn't forget the last year of her life, when I'd drive over to her house after work, helping her with meds or just sitting quietly while she washed her soaps, her frail hand in mine. Those moments made me ache for her, but they also fueled my confusion. How could the woman who'd shared all that with me give everything to someone else? Was there a side of her I'd never seen, a hurt I'd never noticed? I started doubting every memory, wondering if I'd missed something crucial, if I'd failed her in a way I couldn't name. The resentment grew like a weed, twisting around my heart as I navigated the aftermath, feeling more alone than I ever had in this city that used to feel like home. I'd walk through Forsyth Park on weekends, past families picnicking and couples holding hands, and feel this bitter pang that I had no family left, no anchor. I stopped going to Mom's old haunts, her favorite diner on Broughton Street, the church where she sang in the choir, because every place held a ghost of her, and I couldn't face the mix of love and anger that came with it. I'd lie awake in my bedroom, the ceiling fan humming above me, staring at that unopened letter she'd left, wondering if it held answers or just more pain. I resented Marla, too, though I barely knew her, a retired hairdresser with a loud laugh and a habit of calling everyone sugar, someone Mom met at a community center years ago. What had she done to earn Mom's trust, her legacy, over me, her own daughter? I'd see her name in the paperwork and feel this surge of unfairness, this need to confront her, though I didn't even know where to start. And I resented myself for not asking Mom more questions while she was alive, for not pushing harder to understand her, for assuming I'd always have time. The unexpected twist came about 2 months after the will was read, and it flipped everything I thought I knew on its head, adding a layer of complexity to my fight that I hadn't anticipated. I'd finally worked up the courage to open Mom's letter, sitting at my kitchen table with a glass of sweet tea, the late afternoon light streaming through the window. My hands trembled as I unfolded the worn paper, her familiar cursive staring back at me. In it, she didn't apologize, didn't explain why she'd given everything to Marla, but she wrote something that stopped me cold. Marla had been there for her during a time I didn't even know about, a dark period after I'd moved out for college, when Mom had a breakdown and nearly lost everything to debt and depression. Marla, apparently, had helped her through it, paid bills, sat with her through panic attacks, even drove her to therapy when she couldn't afford a car. Mom wrote that she felt she owed Marla a debt she could never repay, and giving her the house and savings was her way of saying thank you, of ensuring Marla, who'd fallen on hard times herself, wouldn't struggle. She ended the letter saying she loved me, that she knew I'd be okay on my own, that I was strong enough to build my own legacy without hers. Reading those words, with the distant sound of a street musician playing saxophone outside, I felt a storm of emotions I couldn't untangle. Relief that there was a reason, guilt for not knowing how much Mom had suffered, and a fresh wave of hurt that she hadn't trusted me enough to tell me back then. I'd been so wrapped up in my own life, starting college, chasing my teaching degree, that I hadn't seen her pain. Was this my fault, for not being there when she needed me most? But even as I wrestled with that, I couldn't shake the feeling that it still wasn't fair. I was her daughter, her family, and I deserved something, didn't I? This twist didn't erase the betrayal. It just painted it in a different shade, making me question if I was selfish for wanting what was mine, or if I was right to feel cast aside. Mom's reasoning made sense on paper, but in my heart, it felt like a rejection, like she'd chosen Marla's past kindness over our lifetime together. I sat there for hours, the letter crumpled in my hand, wondering if I could ever see her the same way again, if I could forgive her for keeping this from me, or if I'd always carry this ache of being second best. That letter sparked a fire in me, a determination to fight for what I felt was mine, not just for the inheritance, but for my place in Mom's story, though the path was messier than I'd imagined. I didn't confront Marla right away. I wasn't ready for that kind of showdown, and honestly, I didn't know if I'd scream or cry if I saw her. Instead, I started small, hiring a lawyer with what little savings I had, a kind older man who worked out of a cramped office near the riverfront. He warned me that contesting a will in Georgia was an uphill battle, especially with Mom's clear intent in the letter, but I pushed forward anyway, driven by a need to be heard, to prove I mattered. I spent weeks gathering documents, digging through old family records and dusty boxes I'd kept in my attic, looking for anything that might show Mom had promised me something, anything, over the years. I'd sit cross-legged on the hardwood floor, surrounded by faded photos and yellowed letters, the humid air making my skin sticky, and feel this mix of hope and despair with every dead end. I also started reaching out to Mom's old friends from church, asking if they knew anything about her bond with Marla, hoping for some clue that might sway a judge. Most were sympathetic but clueless, offering condolences over iced tea on their porches, though a few hinted that Mom had always been private about her struggles, even with me. The process was grueling, a slow grind that tested every ounce of my patience and strength, and it forced me to face parts of myself I'd rather ignore. I'd drive to the courthouse on Bull Street, past the grand fountain in the park, feeling like a fraud some days. Was I dishonoring Mom by fighting her wishes, or was I honoring myself by standing up? I started losing sleep, my dreams haunted by her face, by imagined arguments where I'd beg her to explain why I wasn't enough. My classroom became my escape, where I'd throw myself into lessons about the Civil War or Savannah's role in the Revolution, finding solace in history's clarity when my own life felt like chaos. But even there, I'd catch myself zoning out, staring at the chalkboard while kids whispered, wondering if I was selfish, if I should just let Marla have it all and walk away. I thought about Mom's letter constantly, her words about my strength, both a comfort and a burden. Did she really believe in me? Or was that just an excuse to justify cutting me out? And I thought about Marla, wondering if she knew how much this hurt me, if she felt guilty taking what Mom gave, or if she saw it as her due. The anger hadn't faded, but it was tangled now with guilt, with a reluctant empathy for a woman who'd been there for Mom when I hadn't. Savannah itself became a mirror to my struggle, a city of beauty and burden that held me as I fought. I'd walk along the riverfront on weekends, the water glinting under the sun, the smell of fried fish and salt water in the air, and feel the weight of history, generations of families who'd fought over land, over legacies, just like me. I'd pass the old cotton warehouses turned into trendy shops, thinking about how things change, how what's lost can be rebuilt, and wonder if I could rebuild my bond with Mom's memory, even after this. I started visiting Bonaventure Cemetery, not far from Mom's old house, where the azaleas bloom pink in spring and the statues seem to watch you with silent judgment. I'd sit near strangers' graves, not hers. She'd been cremated, her ashes scattered in the marsh per her wishes, and talk to her in my head, asking why, begging for a sign I was doing the right thing. I sketched the city in my free time, too, doodling the intricate ironwork of historic balconies or the curve of the Talmadge Bridge in a notebook, using art to process the mess of emotions I couldn't voice. Savannah felt like both a refuge and a cage, a place where I'd grown up loved but now felt so alone, and I wondered if I'd ever see it the same way again. Months passed, and the legal battle dragged on, a slow dance of paperwork and hearings that left me drained but still standing, though the outcome wasn't what I'd hoped. The judge ruled mostly in Marla's favor. Mom's will was airtight, her letter a clear statement of intent, and my evidence of promises was too vague to hold up. I was awarded a small portion of the savings, a fraction of what Mom had, as a compromise, but the house stayed with Marla, along with most of the money. I remember sitting in the courtroom, the wooden benches hard under me, the air thick with the scent of old books and polish, feeling like I'd lost all over again. But as I walked out into the sticky Savannah heat, past tourists snapping photos of the historic district, something shifted. It wasn't about the money anymore, or even the house. It was about knowing I'd fought, that I'd stood up for myself, for my place in Mom's life. I'd met Marla once during mediation, a quiet, awkward meeting in a sterile conference room, and saw the lines of hardship on her face, the way her hands fidgeted. She didn't gloat. She just said Mom had been her lifeline, and I saw a flicker of the pain she'd carried, too. It didn't make me like her, but it made me see her as human, not a villain, and that softened the edges of my resentment, just a little. Reflecting on the past year, as I sit here in my bungalow with the evening crickets chirping outside, I'm still wrestling with what this all means, with who Mom was and who I am without her. I think about the fights we had, the way I'd roll my eyes when she'd lecture me about saving money or calling more often, and wonder if I'd been a better daughter, would things have been different? I remember the good, too. Her dragging me to the Savannah Jazz Festival every fall, dancing badly to saxophone riffs under the stars, or the way she'd slip extra biscuits into my lunchbox as a kid, even when we were broke. I think about my own failures, times I prioritized work over family, times I assumed she'd always be there to fix things later. And I think about Marla, about the side of Mom she knew that I didn't, a side I'll never fully understand. I've started going through that box of photos Mom left me, framing a few. Us at Tybee Island, her smiling with sand on her cheeks, and it's a small comfort, a reminder that her love wasn't all gone, even if it feels incomplete. I want to believe I've reclaimed something, not an inheritance of things, but of self-respect, of knowing I didn't just roll over. But I also wonder if I've lost a piece of Mom forever, if this fight tainted the pure memories I had, and that thought keeps me up at night. I picture a future where I've moved on, where I've saved enough to buy a little place of my own here in Savannah, maybe near the marsh where Mom's ashes rest, a place where I can build my own legacy. I imagine hosting history club meetings there, laughing with students over pizza, feeling like I've created a family of my own, even without hers. I see myself walking through the city without the weight of betrayal, stopping at her old diner for peach cobbler and smiling at the memory, not wincing. But I also picture a future where I'm still bitter, where I pass Marla on the street and feel that old sting, where I never fully forgive Mom for choosing someone else over me. I wonder if I'll ever reach out to Marla again, maybe to ask about those dark years Mom hid from me, or if I'll let that chapter stay closed. Savannah stretches out beyond my window, its gas lamps flickering in the dusk, and I feel the pull of its history, its resilience, urging me to keep going, but I'm not sure where the path leads. I'm sharing this story with you because I'm still searching for closure, still trying to figure out how to honor mom's memory while healing from the hurt she left behind. Have you ever felt betrayed by a parent, like they chose someone or something over you in a way that broke your heart? How did you cope? Did you fight like I did? Or did you find a way to let go and move on? Maybe you've had to rebuild your sense of family after a loss or a betrayal. How did you do it? And did the pain ever truly fade? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, because I believe we can learn from each other's struggles. As I look ahead, I'm wondering if I'll ever feel whole again, if I can forgive mom without forgetting the hurt, or if I'll always carry this scar of being left behind. What do you think? How do I find peace from here?